Oh yes, what a win it was. 2 in a row for Collingwood, courtesy of a win over one of the premiership favourites, the Cats. Welcome to The Agenda. I'm Michael Christian, and back after a week off is Jay Clark. Jay, great to have you back, mate, and what a win.
It was fantastic, Chris Owen. When you knock over the best team in the comp, as you know, mate, it generates huge confidence and belief. And suddenly, Collingwood's season, it's completely changed complexion.
Back alive, mate.
Within 2 weeks. So we're going to talk about some great aspects of this performance. For me, it was the appetite for the contest, the desire, the hunger around that contested ball was sensational. Be pivotal again this weekend against Western Bulldogs.
And the start was emphatic, wasn't it? Outstanding work, 7-5 in that opening quarter. And for the second week in a row, Collingwood getting off to a flyer. Inaccurate kicking last week against Brisbane, so it was 4-9, but still 13 scoring shots in one quarter.
Massive.
And then, of course, 7-5 against the Cats. And the record against the Cats in the last 2 times we've played the Cats was pretty positive from an opening quarter standpoint as well.
Got their measure early, it must be said. History will say, but you're right. Look, in the first month, Collingwood was really struggling from the first bounce, but then we've seen in the past 2 weeks with Jesse White on fire early, they just started so well, and again, that appetite was fantastic from the opening bounce. The first time in 56 years, Chriso, that Collingwood has kept its opponent goalless in the first quarters. The first time since 1960.
That's a stat, Jay. 56 years.
Yeah, which is terrific. And you can see the boys linking up here. The captain back in the middle and playing sensationally. So, I mean, it must be a huge relief for Nathan Buckley when his team starts on. When that switch is flicked early, it totally put the pressure on Geelong rather than Collingwood for a change. And it's just a huge boost from the quarter time to be up.
It was, and the first 10 or 15 minutes of the quarter, there was real pressure, but didn't get rewarded on the scoreboard. But as the quarter wore on, the goals just kept coming and coming. So we get to a point where it was 7-5 at quarter time, and as you said, Geelong scoreless, or goalless at least. So it was a fantastic effort. Now, the other aspect of play during the course of the game was the ball movement. And we've seen it struggle a little bit. It's been a bit static, particularly in the early weeks, but the flow and the run and the kicking to position was of a really high calibre.
Well, remember in the pre-season we were talking about Collingwood's midfield depth and how this could be an elite midfield of the competition. As you said, we didn't see that early. But with getting some players back and some guys in form, for me, this on-ball department really flexed its muscle against Dangerfield, against Selwood at the weekend. And Adams and Varco, who you just saw, Pendlebury, Chalor, 7 or 8 guys, Greenwood playing really well. So this midfield is going to be a really tough nut to crack, I think, for opponents as they look at it. And so much more aggressive with the ball here, Chris. So you saw Chalor to Crisp, who there straight up the middle. Early days, they were so much more stagnant, being trapped in the back half. But this was aggressive and exciting footy. And their foot skills, we saw, they can use the footy at times and using in space. So as we said off the top, this looks like such a much more potent, confident Collingwood team.
And Collingwood playing on 38% of the time on Saturday against Geelong, against a season average of just 26%, which underlines what we've just said.
Yeah.
And the other aspect to it, and Jay, in your absence last week, we spoke about Dangerfield and in particular Joel Selwood and the fact that they needed to be shut down. Well, Levi Greenwood, he got the job on Joel Selwood and was quite simply outstanding.
Well, he's the battering ram inside that engine room, and he was fantastic. Look, he probably was one of the guys who started the season in average form, but he had a massive task against Selwood, Chris O, who he's had a few jobs on in recent times, and did just a superb performance. So physical, so aggressive in there, hard at the contest. You see Selwood just had absolutely no time and space whatsoever. They were at him, and Dangerfield, who had probably a bit more freedom, didn't have the impact you thought he might have, Chris O.
No, there was real team aspect to the pressure on Dangerfield, wasn't there? But just 18 disposals for Selwood, 21 for Greenwood. It mirrored last time the teams played because Greenwood did a similar job on Selwood on that occasion. A great performance from Levi Greenwood, but one player that I reckon always gets under the radar, mate, is Jared Blair.
Oh, yeah.
His forward half pressure was an absolute highlight. And whilst he didn't have that many possessions, just 10 in total, but he laid 7 tackles, 2 in the forward 50, but his general pressure around the contest was of a really... Well, it's just elite.
Well, know your role, play your role. It's one of those old sayings, Chris O, but you're spot on. He really helped trap the Collingwood, or the ball inside the Collingwood forward line. And you're right, he's not going to get a massive lot of disposals or necessarily kick a whole lot of goals, but that forward pressure is critical to this Collingwood game plan, because we've seen in the past couple of years, when that forward pressure is on, Chris, and that ball is trapped forward, that's when they're at their best. It's a real barometer for him. So he's an important player for him, Jared Blair.
And he's going to feature a bit later, mate, in my Monday moment. Looking forward to that. Well, Saturday's match was a personal highlight for Steele Sidebottom. It was his 150th game. And as ever, he didn't let his team down with 31 disposals, 9 marks. He caught up with Collingwood media in the rooms post-match.
We're confident going in that we could beat them, and it's probably the first time we've played a good solid 4-quarter game, and we still weren't perfect, so there's still plenty of things to work on, but to get a result like that today is awesome. I think at times we are slow to start, but I think we kicked 7 goals to none in the first quarter, and it always helps. So as I mentioned, we weren't perfect today, and we've got a lot of things to work on, but we keep trending like that, we'll put ourselves in a lot of games. Pretty much my whole family's here. I suppose they've played a big part on who I am because of my family or whatever like that. So, for them to be here, they don't get down often, and to get the win it's unreal.
Oh, he's a star, Steele Sidebottom.
Could you tell that was Steele's brothers there?
Yeah, I reckon there's a fair resemblance. Now, let's look forward because the Western Bulldogs is going to present another massive challenge.
Yep.
If we cast our minds back to NAB Challenge 3, when Collingwood played the Western Bulldogs, it was a really contrasting game of two halves. Our first half turnovers in that match, and there's one from Nathan Brown, really handed the game in that half to the Bulldogs on a platter.
Yep.
They were fantastic, the Bulldogs, the way they capitalised, but gee, we made a lot of errors.
Yeah, in that first half, but then it changed, really, and we saw Collingwood get on top in the second half. Now, the two sides, Chris, have changed remarkably since then. Cloak is out, Cox is in for Collingwood, and of course, Johannesson's out for the Bulldogs. So the two sides have structured up a little bit differently. What is going to be so important is the contested ball. The Bulldogs are leading the competition in this stat. Yes, they were down against GWS at the weekend, but they're going to pose a huge challenge because they get the extra number to the ball in that midfield. So it's going to be hot in the engine room this weekend. But one man who has made a huge difference to the Collingwood side, Chriso, since then is Jeremy Howe. So he's gone back, recruited as a forward, you must say, played back, and was massive at the weekend against Geelong, become a real point man, took 11 marks, the intercept marks, helps Ben Reid drive the team forward from that half-back line. So I think against the Bulldogs with Howe in and playing form, just might be a point of difference for the weekend's game.
Well, he might be the obvious matchup for Jake Stringer as well, who is a real barometer for the Western Bulldogs, equal size, and he's got
he plays up the ground too.
Yeah, he's got a touch of flair, good aerobic capacity, so it could be the ideal matchup for Jake Stringer.
Well, and you think maybe Greenwood, who we mentioned before, go to Bontempelli, and as you said, Howe to Stringer, sort of match up okay against those guys.
Now, after the game at the MCG, the VFL was on in earnest at the Holden Centre, and of course we're monitoring the progress of Travis Cloak, and he played a bottler. He kicked 3 goals in the opening quarter and kicked 4 for the game, but started to get back to the Travis Cloak of old.
Well, it was an impressive performance. This is what we've been looking for. The coaching staff have been calling for Travis Cloak, some work rate, some accurate kicking. Looks like he's got a bit of passion for the footy back, enjoying his game. What I think though, Chriso, and you've been talking about this, you can see there in getting involved once again, he's going to need to, and that's a nice mark by Tyson Goldsack.
Well, he's another one, Jake, that's looking to perhaps come back into the team, along with Marley Williams, who had a really good game as well.
I think that Nathan Buckley's going to want some sustained performances from these guys. I think that's the difference. It's okay to play well once. The senior teams won at the weekend. They've been making a lot of changes this year. I think Nathan Buckley's probably wanting some stability at the selection table for these guys to build some good form in the VFL before calling him in. So we might see an unchanged team, Chriso.
Okay, so the bye is in round 13, so with 3 games to go, and this is a look at what confronts the Magpies. The Bulldogs, obviously, as we've discussed, this Sunday at the MCG. But Jay, then winnable games against Port and Melbourne, and an opportunity, perhaps, if win all 3, to get 7-5, or at worst maybe 6-6, and at least it puts the team back in the season.
And even keel. Well, it's completely changed things around from the first month. I reckon 2 out of the 3. The Bulldogs are going to be a hard game at the weekend, bouncing back. Melbourne and Port Adelaide, I think they could both win. So 2 out of 3, I think would be a pretty good result, as you said, 6-6.
All right, well, let's focus now on our Monday moments and take it away, mate.
Well, how could you miss this man, Mason Cox? He was a novelty act, Chriso, early doors. You thought, what's this guy going to be able to contribute? When he pulls out tricks like this at the weekend, Chriso. You think this guy can become a serious player at AFL level. Look at that tap from Madame Trelaw. This is a double moment, Chriso. That was fantastic. Adzi gets it forward to Cox in space, has the man on the right. No, he takes a bounce. Can you believe it? The big American kicks the goal from 30 metres out and celebrates with the big eagle. Didn't his teammates love that? He's provided a spark, this man, and he sent every other club looking for big Americans like himself. Look at me. Look at the bounce. Oh, could have went anywhere. I know. It'd be great to see him do it again. And the spread eagle celebration, didn't the teammates get around him? The whole MCG roared when that happened, Chriso. Yeah. And you saw Nathan Buckley love it at the moment. This bloke, Chriso, he's not going anywhere. He's staying in the team. We love him.
Yeah,
what about you?
He's very talented. Jared Blair, now I know we touched on him earlier, but his forward pressure was really set the tone, I reckon, for that first quarter and set the tone for the match. Here he is setting up a goal for Scott Pendlebury. The ball is in the forward pocket, and eventually it comes to Fasola, who's able to get it back to Pendlebury. We'll just watch a replay of the Blair tackle on Buse that just set this opportunity up, and the chase, bang. And when you're doing that in the forward 50, it just makes things so much easier because you retain the ball and gives the team an opportunity to score. And I think that's the real hallmark of what that win was about on Saturday.
Yeah, he rolls his sleeves up, Joe.
No question.
Blair. Good spot by you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, real sharp stuff.
Thank you, Joe. Now let's look forward. We've touched on the Bulldogs. We've touched on the NAB Challenge match. Can Collingwood beat the Bulldogs on Sunday?
I think they can. It's all going to start in the midfield. They're a great contested possession side, but we've seen this elite midfielder, Trelaw, Pendlebury. He's back in. He's back at his elite self, I reckon, fully fit now. I think if they can get that ball out of the centre and keep it in their forward half for the game, I reckon they can knock over the Bulldogs, Chris.
Well, let's hope. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think if they can play like they played on Saturday, they can absolutely win.
They can beat anyone.
Absolutely. Mate, great to have you back. Hope you enjoyed the agenda for this week. Hope you can join us next week for another edition. Go Pies. Goodbye.